Borderlands 4, the long-awaited next entry in the franchise that I have absolutely come to adore, is finally here, and with it, some rather massive change-up to the series. From the gameplay to mechanics and characters, hell to even how you progress your way through your initial run of the game itself. All in all, the physical game of Borderlands 4 is entirely impressive and, in my opinion, just what the series needed for a real refreshed feel to the franchise that now spans 16 freaking years. However, with that being said, and with so much good coming from this entry, there are a few things that are causing, let's just say, confused concern in my mind. And one glaring issue I am praying Gearbox is frantically trying to correct despite what a, certain someone might be saying. So let's get into it. And how about you? What would you say is your favorite aspect of Borderlands 4? Who did you pick as your first Vault Hunter? And how are you enjoying the game so far? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear it. Now, I can't really get into this until we talk about the elephant in the room. In all reality, nothing good or bad I'm going to say about the game truly matters if this is stopping you from playing the game in the first place, or at bare minimum is currently ruining your experience with it. Apparently, Pitchford's tweet should have probably said you can't expect the game to run on day of release. It would have been a tad more accurate. So, performance. Yeah, day one, and by extension the first weekend, it wasn't even close to anything I would expect an $80 game to deliver. From my own personal experience and quite a few people in the Steam reviews, it seems like far and beyond if you weren't rocking an absolute nuclear reactor of a PC, you were at the mercy of constant stuttering, seemingly endless recompiling of shaders, and crashes about every 30 minutes if you could even get past the title screen at all. And even then, there are a ton of people rocking high-end hardware that were also voicing major problems with the game's optimization. I'm sorry, but also I'm not. If a 5090 and a Ryzen 9950 X3D can't handle the game well, even at lower resolutions, then that's not a hardware problem. That's an in-house problem. The barrier for entry for Borderlands 4 cannot be an $80 price tag and a $6,000 PC. That is just ludicrous. From my own personal experience, these are my PC specs on screen, with a 1440p monitor, even at medium settings, I was greatly struggling to run the game. Using quite a bit of DLSS and FrameGen, I was able to stave off the stuttering, but not entirely get rid of it. But what really got to me was the sheer amount of crashing I was experiencing. Without fail, when I entered a new area, multiple enemies spawned at once, or even entered a cutscene, I came to expect the game to crash. Did it crash every single time? No, but it was consistent enough that I was always expecting it to happen. The problem was on a lot of these crashes, it also meant shaders needed to be recompiled, and when I did manage to get back into the game, it kinda looked like this for a while the game was reloading all of the areas that were open to me. And this problem only got worse the deeper I got into the game. The way I sorta got around this issue was whenever I entered a new area, I would just leave my character in a safe place and wait 15 to 30 minutes until the frames went back up and the game had ample time to load the landscape and anything else it needed to. Which sucked, I can't lie, but it was the only thing that was allowing longer, uninterrupted play sessions, but even then, it was a 50-50 shot on a fast travel that the game would crash and I needed to repeat the process. And truth be told, that wasn't really a fix. It was more like holding a paper towel on a cut and waiting for someone to give me a band-aid. And sometimes I never even got the chance because clicking continue and loading into the game would itself crash the game. Yeah, not exactly a riveting experience for the first weekend. All in all, the performance of the game for its first weekend of play was abysmal to say the least. There really isn't a way around that. Now, they have made some improvements. A patch went out that seemingly made the game far more steady in terms of stuttering, crashes, and overall performance. The crashes haven't fully gone away for me, but I did lose all stuttering and am holding firm at 80 to 90 FPS, but I hesitate to say it fixed all the problems out there. Still, I'm afraid to even take the game off medium with max performance settings, cause when I do, even if I just jump up one level graphically, there is still noticeable stutter for a while after I make that change. And this isn't a hardware issue specifically, it's an optimization issue at the end of the day, no matter how much someone wants to scream about gamers having unrealistic expectations on what settings they can play the game on. No shit, the game isn't gonna run at 4K native with maxed out default settings on a freaking 2070, but the game should at least, I don't know, run maybe? I really do hope that there are massive improvements made that allow the game to run optimally on minimum specs that were listed for the game. I really think Borderlands 4 is an amazing entry to the franchise in so many ways, but that doesn't matter if the game isn't accessible to anyone who can't afford to shell out $3,000 just to play on PC. So I am really hoping that this gets straightened out as soon as possible so everyone can experience it and we don't have another Monster Hunter Wild situation on our hands. Okay, with that out of the way, on to the great stuff. The story of Borderlands 4, and don't worry, I'm not going to be going over any spoilers here, manages to compile all the best aspects of every game that came before it, and on top of it, add in its own unique perspectives and avoid any of the pitfalls the likes of BL3 had. The characters and interactions between them, both new and returning, are the best they have ever been, really leaning into their dynamics and differing personalities to birth some amazing exchanges in dialogue, and in the same breath managing to teach us more about them than we really ever knew. To me, it felt more like a return to the characteristics Borderlands 2 had with its characters, where the dynamic between each of them, whether it be like Roland and Lilith, or Brick or Mordecai, was unique to each interaction. Everyone treated and interacted with each other differently, and that was very noticeable here in 4. Even with the new characters, they all feel memorable. They all have legitimate parts to play in the story, rather than simply being drones for exposition or molehills for single objectives every so often. Every character had a purpose, and each had such vivid personalities that it was so much fun to watch them interact with other characters you meet as you progress through the game. My favorite, and don't worry, this isn't a spoiler, you meet him literally within the first 3 missions, is Rush, a charismatic leader of the first group you encounter. And what was weird, especially for a Borderlands game, is Rush is an archetype of a character we don't see all that often in the series. He cares deeply about the people that he has been appointed to lead. Sure, we had Lilith and Roland in Borderlands 2 that cared for the people of Sanctuary in a sense, but that was more from a resistance standpoint, where Rush is wholly devoted to his group and cares for nothing but protecting them from whatever dangers might come their way on Kairos. And that's something that goes along as a theme with all of these characters. They are so memorable and central to the story that all of their actions are quite literally pivotal to the overarching story. And through that importance of each character, there are genuine moments in this game. Moments that I would never have expected in a Borderlands story because they all hit the right markers at the right time and place. Sorry, I know I'm being vague, I just really don't want to spoil things here. Rather than what we had in Borderlands 3 with those attempted moments that were quickly undercut by way too many unfunny comments, Borderlands 4 lets them stand and lets them play out with a full air of seriousness behind it. This is heavily aided by the fact that 4 kinda has a return to the original in terms of tone. The humor, while sprinkling in some goofy one-liners now and then, has a much drier overall humor to it. It's not super in your face at all times, it's spaced out a lot more and kinda holds the theme of, well, we're all fucked anyway, we might as well laugh. But far gone is the feel of 3 with butt stink and all that other weird off-putting dialogue that was constantly shoved through your ears. The story, I mean, just to sum it up easily, is leagues and leagues better than Borderlands 3 if that was something you were worried about. Sure, it's not a high bar to cross in all honesty, but they cleared it all the same and then some. From tone to humor, pacing to stakes, it's all just so freaking good. It really makes you wonder what the fuck happened in Borderlands 3 with the Calypso twins. After this, I don't know if I can rightfully defend the 3rd game anymore, so shit, I'll hold this and moving on. I guess speaking of villains and their impact to the overall story, we have Borderlands 4's antagonist, the Timekeeper. I can't really talk about him much without ruining the story, but what I will say is the Timekeeper is not Handsome Jack, and at no point is he trying to be, and it's glorious. I can't even put them in the same category. Their morals, actions, and overall quote-unquote master plans are so different from one another. It really, really drives home that the Timekeeper is not another attempted Jack clone like the Calypso twins sorta were in some senses. They decided to take him in a completely different direction, and it makes him feel like a wholly unique villain to the franchise, something we have never really experienced thus far. Literally, it's all I can say about him. Been trying to write some more for about 40 minutes, and I keep getting way too close to spoiler territory. From the story bosses, the zones, the characters, hell, even the Vault Hunters having their own unique dialogue, more akin to the pre-sequel, is all just so freaking fantastic. It blew away what little expectations I had for the game in the story category. Another bonus to to it is the fact that how you progress the bulk of the story is entirely up to your discretion. You can pick what areas you want to tackle first in any order, and from what I've seen so far, story aspects change slightly depending on your path, which just incentivizes multiple playthroughs all taking different routes to see what else changes based on your chosen order. But then again, even without that aspect, a second playthrough isn't a hard sell because the gameplay just blows the hinges off. Oh freaking wow. Honestly, I really can't put it any other way. The gameplay of Borderlands 4 is just top notch. So many improvements to systems, gunplay, skill trees, mechanics, movement, you name it. And in the case of few of these, they were already great in Borderlands 3, but here it just feels tuned into an unbelievable level. The vaulting can be a bit wonky at times, but honestly, I'm not sure if that's a performance thing again. Sometimes it's seamless, sometimes it just gets a little weird, but I'm just throwing that in there. Anyone else notice it, or is that just me? Let me know. When the game is running full bore with little in its way, the gunplay manages to somehow feel even better than it did in Borderlands 3. They are super snappy and responsive to a T, and with so much variety with the new licensed parts system, each gun can really feel and function so differently just from variants you pick up. The licensed parts system essentially gives the special effect from one manufacturer to another company's gun. So, for instance, you can pick up a Vladov sniper with the Jacobs part, so the crits ricochet to other enemies, dual elements from Maliwan, so on and so forth. This just adds such a cool level of uniqueness to each gun and really lets you play with the weapons or makers that you enjoy the most. You don't really have to stick to a specific manufacturer for a specific gun type because every gun can hold every manufacturer's special ability. And because of this aspect to the weapons, you can really seek out that perfect feel for your favorite weapons. Some legendaries are locked to specific effects, but speaking of the legendaries, they are back to being, well, legendary, and oh my god does it feel so great to get one. They feel much closer to the drop rates from Borderlands 2 from what I've seen. With the farming I've already been throwing myself into, I have yet to see 2 legendaries in a single drop so far, and that just makes the farming and seeing one in general all that more rewarding and special. I'll take this drop rate over Borderlands 3 any day of the week because it actually gives you something to aim for and chase down if you want that specific weapon, rather than killing some random named boss and it absolutely shitting out a pile of legendaries. And some of these legendaries are absolutely nuts. The Hot Slugger might just be the Hellwalker of Borderlands 4, even though I found this motherfucker so early in my playthrough. He lives! And because of such diversity in the weapon parting and effects that you can get on really anything that you want, you can really make whatever guns you love to use pretty much work on any build, with some minor variation in effectiveness, but still. Speaking of builds, our lovely new skill trees here, holy hell is there a lot to work with for each Vault Hunter. 3 trees, each with 3 action skills and an absolutely mammoth amount of combinations to experiment with. There are so many combos for each individual tree, and each trait actually seems like it has synergy with at least 3 or 4 others, creating these builds for absolutely insane amounts of damage as you work your way down each tree. Don't get me wrong, some of these builds are straight out broken, so expecting some corrections at some point in the future, but even still, each tree feels well thought out and tuned in specifically to accomplish whatever that Vault Hunter's main style is in spectacular fashion. And a point to the brokenness of some of these builds and abilities, something Borderlands 4 does shockingly well, somehow more so than previous games, is power fantasy. In the beginning, it's a bit slow and you're not really killing things all that quick. In some areas early on, you really might need to slow down and play it carefully, and this has a lot to do with the manual healing system in 4, a mechanic at first I didn't fully like, but after about an hour it was completely second nature, and from the look of some of these boosts these stims can give, really opened up my builds to some wacky levels. But more so back to the point, once you are used to it and you begin to build out your tree over the course of the game, you go from this inexperienced Vault Hunter not so sure of themselves to a total badass, absolutely carving your way through Kairos at breakneck speeds, fearless and freaking deadly. That's such a cool aspect to actually feel yourself yourself growing in power as a vault hunter as the story plays out and the bosses become harder and harder. And the bosses you will inevitably encounter in your playthrough are another point in the game's favor. Some are more typical, like we have all experienced before, but others bring it to a scale we can only begin to see in the takedowns of Borderlands 3. The arenas are fantastic and the mechanics are genuinely dangerous at times. Multiple bosses throughout the game will be throwing absolute hell at you, and taking them on at level or slightly under breeds a real challenge you need to overcome, especially when talking about the big bosses you will experience at cruxes of the story. But you'll have to experience that for yourself. No spoilers here. Each one having a fully different set of mechanics and weaknesses that really can't be overlooked. Borderlands 3 didn't really have a strong position on element affinity. Hell, I pretty much used shock for 99% of all bosses and never really bothered to switch unless I absolutely had to. And even then, that was a few and far between situation, to be honest. In this entry, however, it matters quite a damn bit, not just for the health bars themselves, but also you need to watch what they are specifically resisting from you. It's not a full stop in all reality, but still there is a massively noticeable difference when using the correct element that they are weak to versus when you are not. It isn't quite at the level of the original Borderlands, but it's getting kinda close. However, should you find yourself missing a weapon element that you may need to speed up a fight or clean out an arena with a solid amount of enemies, never fear, because ordnance weapons are here. This is an all-encompassing piece of kit that replaces the traditional grenade slot. This time, instead of just grenades, we also have our launchers, heavy machine guns, rail guns, and throwing knives along with it. This is a really interesting change up to me. Traditionally, in the previous entries, I would just have my best used grenade for that situation and a launcher in one of my 4 slots to help when I'm in fight for your life. But 4 made me choose if I wanted grenades, doing the pretty standard thing you would expect from the plethora of Borderlands grenades, or maybe I want to take a launcher for higher pockets of burst, or to really target in on a specific heavy enemy and take him out of the fight early. Or if neither of those options strike your fancy, we have the throwing knives. Honestly, an element I was so skeptical about early on, but once you really take the time to look into them, they can be some serious vehicles for extra crit chance, extra resistance, or hell, even lifesteal. The ordnance slot really bridges a gap of utility that the game solely stands to benefit from. And what's even better is there's a legitimate purpose for them. There are enemies, bosses, and named alike that you will need a little bit of extra specialized damage to deal with, and putting them on cooldown was just a wildly good decision. Granted, again, another decision I was a little bit skeptical about at first. After all, I'm used to running into a boss early game in the previous titles and dumping my entire stack of grenades to hopefully take the bulk out of the health bars. But with them being on cooldown, one, I used them far more often than I was expecting, and it forced me to pick the moment to use them. If I wasted all 3 launcher shots right away for a single enemy, I have to be able to survive long enough to get them off cooldown again for the next enemy that comes up that needs that amount of burst. It really changed up how I see the grenade slot. It's far too valuable here in 4 to just dump them all at once and hope for the best. Use them sparingly and use them well. Seriously, missing shots with a launcher or completely whiffing a lifesteal grenade or crit bonus knife really put me in some precarious positions at multiple points throughout the game. It left me to have to rely on running, jumping, and dodging, just hoping my trump card for a specific enemy would come off cooldown fast enough to get the win. Oh, and how could I even forget the movement of Borderlands 4? So on top of it being just as smooth and fluid as it was in 3, well, with that weird one exception with vaulting, but again, not really sure if that was a performance thing on my end, anyway. But now they've added in gliding and dash dodging, which just brings the speed of the gameplay up another level. Granted, you need it for most of these bosses, especially towards the end portion of the game, but god, for even smaller encounters, it's just that additional little change that adds so much to every fight. Honestly, once I got my hands on a Hellwalker, I forgot I was playing Borderlands. It felt like I was right back in Doom Eternal. So we got great gunplay, amazing trees, fantastic new systems, and was there nothing I didn't like? Well, honestly, not really anything. I could nitpick some things like the amount of driving in the beginning, but eventually as you progress the game, it kinda corrects itself. Yeah, in this size of an open world map, there is bound to be a lot of driving and traveling around, but as you complete objectives, you unlock more fast travel stations, and the amount of driving gets cut down significantly. There are a few zones within the major sections of the game that could possibly do with 1 or 2 more fast travel stations, but that feels like grasping at straws at that point. Overall, the gameplay of Borderlands 4 is the best the series has ever felt at literally every point. Between fine-tuning what we had before and integrating some really great new changes, everything about it is just at the top level for the series, which makes it all the more pressing that any performance issues need to be fixed as soon as humanly possible before too many new players write the game off before even getting to play it. Okay, mild gameplay spoiler here. It has nothing to do with the story, don't worry. I wanted to toss this in here last second because this is the single aspect causing the most concern confusion, as I mentioned earlier. So at this moment, I have hit max level with Harlow and absolutely ripped my way through rank 5 Ultimate Vault Hunter, and, well, I'm kinda at a loss for what to do, if I'm honest with you. I am by no means condemning the game over this. If memory serves, most Borderlands games don't have their full base game endgame available only a week after launch, but what is concerning me is this weekly rotation system. Essentially, as of this moment, what the endgame appears to boil down to is to repeat story missions with modifiers in the wildcard missions, an aspect that was not well received in the Mayhem levels of Borderlands 3, hence the addition of Mayhem 11, so Gearbox doubling down on the modifiers was a choice, to say the least. And not to mention, already the modifiers are either wildly annoying for no reason, not really hard, just kind of annoying, or make the wildcard missions so freaking easy because the modifiers do more damage to the mobs than they do to you. After that, you have Moxie's big Encore modifier, a great sync for Iridium that makes the Encore bosses ever so slightly harder and ups the dedicated drop chance a bit, but it's only one boss a week that this modifier can be available for, which feels weird, especially with the amount of bosses in this game. I kinda hope they change it to at least a few bosses a week rather than just one, because if it's a boss I don't need anything from, it's kinda pointless and a bust for that week. Then Maurice's Black Market is the other thing that you can do. It's a vending machine selling legendaries that hides in the map. That's kinda it. And finally, there's just general farming. As you go up in the ultimate ranks, the loot quality improves. I'm not entirely sure what that means exactly, but from the looks of things, it means better licensed parts or effects in general, or at least they do a little bit more. At least that's what I think it is. I don't know fully yet. I'm testing that out still. And look, farming is a favorite activity of mine, so I have no problem just running around blasting bosses and seeing what they will eventually drop. So cool, no real complaints there. But at the same time, well, part of the enjoyment of farming was farming with a purpose to do something. In 2, it was to take out the invincible raid bosses at different OP levels. In 3, it was to see how fast I could blitz a takedown on true mode or any of the trials. But in 4, I don't know. It's kind of just farming for farming's sake. Nothing really to aim for because I don't have anything directly to go after at this moment. I mean, I suppose we do have the secret rarity guns that have a stupid low chance of dropping. God, I'm gonna need to chase all of those things up and down Kairos, and just asking for my own knowledge, have you found one yet? If so, where? Tell me. And this whole section could all be for naught. I may just be early to the party and there's still a ton to come, but at the moment for the base game, the end game kinda seems really empty. I thought originally there would be a lot more to the 3 vaults scattered around Kairos, and replaying the story missions with modifiers, something you have to do for the ultimate ranks anyway, just doesn't interest me all that much. I don't know. Truth be told, the game is just good enough that just playing it through again, leveling to 50 and doing the ultimate ranks over again with all the vault hunters is appealing enough to keep me playing for now, but I'm just mildly concerned that this weekly rotation is going to be a theme for the total overarching endgame of Borderlands 4. That's all. Sorry, this is just off the cuff right at the end. I was playing while I was editing this video and kind of noticed I was out of things to do at the moment on Harlow. Oh well. Back to pushing Rafa through the story, no biggie. At the end of it all, Borderlands 4 is an absolutely amazing game, and I am praying the performance issues are all fixed in full because I truly think any fan of this series needs to get the chance to experience this game in its entirety uninterrupted. I'm hesitant to rank it up there with Borderlands 2 as one of the best entries in the series because it's so new and currently having such a large performance problem, but once that is solved and whatever is to come for the game is wide open to the future, who knows, it may become its closest rival. Well, that's about it from me. Honestly, I'm completely blown away by so many aspects of this game. The endgame needs a bit more to do in my opinion, but then again, yeah, I also didn't need to blitz 50 levels and 5 ranks in 2 days, so that one might be on me. But how about you? How are you enjoying the game so far? And is there anything you are hoping they add in the future? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear it. So I'm gonna go finish up pushing Rafa to the end game so I can move on to Vex. I got 4 Vault Hunters here to get through and not enough time in the week. Anyway, see ya.